Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Monday on June 21st at 11:33 a.m. We're going to figure out these markets and we're going to figure out them together. What do we do? Actions, choices, time horizon. The markets are teetering. Michael Burry, that boy got it right back in 2008, and he saw it earlier. You saw it around 2006, and all I did was look at the data. We see the data. We see what's going on with the reverse repos, three-quarters of $1 trillion on a daily basis, merely by jacking up the interest rate by 0.05%. What a ridiculous thing. That's how much cash they have that they don't want to do anything with. They want to get rid of it, and they're not lending it, as we could see that with the M2 velocity charts, which are basically zero. Basically no velocity. And we talk about in the crypto space is lending and borrowing. It's permissionless. But the permissioned system in legacy finance has basically no lending and borrowing going on, which basically doesn't mean there's any opportunity, which doesn't create business, which doesn't create money using double entry accounting methodology. And it's pretty starkly different what's going on in legacy finance as compared to the crypto space. That doesn't mean everything's awesome in the crypto space. Obviously, we're seeing significant depreciation. I'll pull up the charts. I want to look at some interesting numbers that mean the most to me, and I'll walk you through what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about my capital, which I have principal that's obviously depreciating significantly. But you guys know my methodology. I'm not necessarily thinking about the principal as much. And I also have a very different time horizon that I've deployed when thinking of my assets. I was buying $3,000 Bitcoin back in last March of 2020. All of my Bitcoin was bought sub $10,000. So that means a lot. And it means I have very different considerations. And I have much longer time horizons than most people um, are probably willing to entertain or most people even think about. I'm not thinking about days, weeks. I'm probably thinking about not even years, probably thinking about multitudes of years, multiple years. And I'm thinking about China. I'm thinking about India. And I'm thinking about South America at this point. I'm thinking about how angry countries are, not even just people, and how controlled they are, and how pressured they are by the status quo financial system. It's pressure. They're angry. People are suppressed. Therefore, choices and options are repressed, so on and so forth. So, the mother of all crashes, what are the choices? What are your choices? Let's go through them. They're very obvious. Today's episode is sponsored by Change Angel, the non custodial swap exchange for social goods. Stop depositing on exchanges, not your keys, not your crypto, non custodial DeFi, or nothing at all. Bam! Let's pop it over to the main screen and see who's in the stream. Got Powder Monkey in the house, Klaus in the house, Derek, what's up? Ali, hello. Kenji, good morning. Hickam, Wave, markets are red, but yields stay flowing. Now that's basically what means everything to me at this point. And I identify that as more than a systemic difference than 2017, 2018. That's everything. That's a tremendous, a massive, monumental difference. And you guys see what I have up on the screen here. $389 million on the daily volume for Curve. Come on, guys. That is so cool to see. Knowing that you could own a part of the daily volume, a part, average daily earnings, a part of $130,000 in profit per day, dollar denominated. That's extraordinary, guys. And that's what I'm thinking about. FM, no, we have 10K that will self destruct in 1 hour. You have to buy an asset. What do you buy? Well, for me, well, with the markets depreciating like they are, it's probably optimal to put it in like a USDC and put it onto Convex or vis-a-vis Curve, and just but then it's not necessarily liquid, and the yields on Curve are obviously depreciating because liquidity is flooding into the space as folks go risk off. You get some nice numbers on Curve, but you're not going to get much on $10,000. You get some nice yields at 20% interest on $1 million, but it's a whole different ball game. The appropriate thing to do is to wait and then to train ourselves to rethink about what we're doing with our capital and why we're doing it. We're not doing it for short-term gains, and that's exactly what happened to Doge. Doge went to 70 cents and it was bleeding out. That thing's at like 20 cents at this point. That's a straight-up tragedy. Anyone who bought a couple $100,000 worth of Doge at 70 cents thinking it was going to the dollar. FM, truthfully, probably the best thing to do is wait and um, and see if you could get at better prices. What you end up buying obviously has to be a subjective choice. But I tell you, my choice overwhelmingly is Curve. I can't get over the fact that this is just going to go up. I don't care whether it's a bear market or a bull market. My speculation isn't about the price of assets. My speculation is that the transaction volume will go up. Liquidity and capital will flood the space. Speculation will remain steady, if not increase. And we'll have days of degeneracy where this transaction volume is going to go through the roof. And all I know is I want a part of that volume. I want a part of those fees. I want a part of that interest and yield. That's what I want. Whole different ball game, and I'm thinking in multiple year time horizon in 4, 5, 6 years. I don't care what it does. I'm indifferent. I'm just the money that I put into the space was 90% cheaper than what it is at right now. I'm up like 1,100% since last March. So let the principal do whatever the hell it wants to do. What I did with that money, and I was probably up like 2,500% at one point. It's a massive, massive gain. I'm down over 50% from all-time highs, but I'm indifferent to that. The money was much less. It was worth less. I never imagined the experience I would have had over the last year. That experience is invaluable to see how people behave, to see the development that has been going on. An extraordinary experience. It's an experience that you would never, ever get trying to play around with legacy financials. You are on Fidelity and trading stocks and bonds. What a boring, not exciting experience whatsoever. Meanwhile, we're in the crypto space, clicking away on a ledger device, owning our own keys, owning our own financial sovereignty. If I have to have my assets and watch them fall another 50% for the experience I had, absolutely. So worth it. And to top it all off, the principal could fall. This transaction volume is still going strong. And that's all I think about nowadays. And that's my conviction. That's where my conviction lies, knowing that the transaction volume is there. It's been there. It'll likely be there. So I speculate on network transaction volume and daily revenue, not the price of the assets I had to purchase in order to have rights to that daily revenue. That's the deal. That's the deal. So I put a price on the daily revenue stream. Robert's in the house. Good morning. Drizza, pleasure. Nick made it. Ali, unless there's a systemic collapse of crypto, I love seeing tokens unsafe. Although seeing the principal USD value go down is definitely not joyful. I've watched $2 million turn into $1 million. Yes, I know the feeling. I know. I'm loving those convex gains. Mark, you're absolutely right. Nick, is there a guide or video I could look for guidance on Curve and Convex? You put it on my radar. I'd like to do my due diligence. I've talked about Convex for a long time. Well, yeah, since before its release, because the emissions were always going to be CRV instead of compounded dollars via the earn products. But I don't have guides. Um, DeFi Dad has guides how to interact with them, but in order to really understand them, you have to take $50 and you experiment with $50. Come on, you go out to dinner for $50. You skip dinner one night and you have $50 to play around with to try and understand how these systems work and what they mean. It's an education experience, and we'll all have to come to our own realizations about the meaning of these systems, and it's not just what they mean for financials; it's what they mean to you. You know, people were hoping buying Doge it would be financial freedom, and instead it turned out to be financial catastrophe. And what I get out of these systems is long term. I expect that financial freedom, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. That's my speculation. Own your gold, own your silver, have exposure to some growth securities. I mean, it's not I'm not growth value securities. For myself, it's the lithium, cobalt, nickel, and graphite miners, which have been consolidating. And over the next 10 years, 10 years, I literally have assets that I won't be touching. And I'm trying to train myself, which I've done quite effectively, to think about the assets the same way in the crypto space. If it's dollars, yeah, I got cash just in case the system deflates and has a deflationary implosion, which, sure, I expect it. The gold bugs expect there to be hyperinflation. Deflation before inflation is what a lot of people talk about. So if you're only exposed to one thing and one of those narratives, big risk. That's big risk because we have no idea what's going to play out. There's no guarantees that we don't have an inflationary event that turns everything around in the next 24 hours. It looks like deflation. Everyone was completely long inflation probably a week ago, and now all of a sudden the story is completely changing. Bitcoin was on the defensive or holding support for a while, but now it's nicely below the 0.5. But look at these wicks. These are very serious wicks and a heck of a congestion zone. This price region stuck below the 0.382 as resistance. So resistance broke, now resistance held. It's a heck of a head and shoulders. Was it going all the way back down to a couple of thousand? Is it going all the way back down to high threes? I don't know. All I know is I bought a Bitcoin at $3,000 when the whole thing imploded last year. I literally caught that wick down, the bottom of the wick. That was pretty cool. So anyway, a couple of comments. Is there a guide? So I don't have a clear guide that I could provide. DeFi Dad helps. Bankless HQ helps. And overall, the guide isn't the end all be all of a solution. What we need is narrative and talk and stories. And this entire experience is a journey of personal realization. Crypto, as I've said, means as much to the people as it does to you. And it's kind of mutually exclusive stories in many regards. FM, you can put it in yield, but you have to buy an asset. What do you buy? Well, my friend, you have a couple of assets that you think are the systemic change that everyone thinks is going to change the world. So, you have to come up with your own subjective choices for assets. I myself have my own choice. I choose the Curve asset. There's plenty of AMM assets, governance assets. You have YFI, you have Sushi, you have Balancer, you have KNC, you have BNT. And there's a lot of choices. There's no one that's going to be able to tell you what to buy in order to change your life. And everyone has to find their own path, my friend. Klaus, can you explain the benefits of converting USDC into Curve via 1-inch, just swapping it straight to CVX CRV? Sure. So CVX CRV is added manually to 1-inch. So if you're trying to buy CVX CRV, you'll notice you don't get the benefit of the arbitrage. You get the better rate of swapping a Curve first. So if you swap X amount of dollars to 100 Curve and then you try and swap the Curve to CVX CRV, probably be getting like 104, 105 CVX CRV. Don't look at the dollar denominated value. You're getting more CVX CRV for the Curve input. And that's what's meaningful. It's not the dollar value. One CRV is locked to create a CVX CRV. So if you can take advantage of that arbitrage opportunity, which I've done many times, and I've seen a couple of thousand extra Curve at times, swapping like 20,000 Curve to CVX CRV, and you're getting like 22,000. It's just an example, and that's the arbitrage. People are selling CVX CRV for whatever reason, and that's their choice. And for us, we're getting a significant discount when we're trying to accumulate it. And that's what I do is on a weekly basis, and I've been accumulating cash denominated in GUSD for purposes of tax liability next year. Obviously, I can't withdraw that cash from the crypto space, otherwise I'd experience a taxable event. So I have to wait till the 12:01 a.m. on January 1st, 2022, and then I could have that cash in a bank account and prepared to pay my tax obligations. But that's how I'm managing 2021. 2021 is being handled much more strategically. than 2020. I'm thinking of it in terms of a business operation. And it's much more satisfying, much less time is required. Frankly, no time. I'm just look at some charts and I cringe at the price action, a buck 60. That's a heck of a congestion zone. And this was a previous inverse head and shoulders. It's pretty much bottom. Look at that. Look at where it's sitting, actually. That's quite interesting. It's a heck of a price region to find support. I mean, how much further going to go down? Let it go down as far as it wants, and that's not what's pertinent in my eyes. But at some point, there's a bottom on everything. This is Ethereum, somewhat of a still an inverse head and shoulders if it doesn't breach the neckline, and I would say the neckline is down here. This is obviously a horrible y-axis scale. Let's take a look at Bitcoin and see how that's doing. Yeah, that broke it pretty bad. I mean, you can still have a fake out breakout, but still below, what is that, the 0.618, which is, let's see it hold on the daily above the 0.618, and that'd be nice. Is this even set up right? No. Yeah, it is. These fibs are all right. So watching that hold above 0.618 is something that's going to be nice to see. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I know exactly what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how I'm doing it. I have all the conviction and comfort in the world. No fear. Just knowing that I'm making the appropriate choices. The amount of capital I've allocated to the crypto space, the amount of capital I've allocated to the broad equities, broad securities markets, the amount of physical gold and silver, the amount of cash, real estate properties. If you're all in one thing, that's a risky situation to be in. Germanium, a curve tutorial. That's DeFi Dad. DeFi Dad does tutorials. Noah talks. I mean, that is the name of the stream, Noah Talks. I tell stories. I tell you the significance, the meaning, the logic about how to look at what Curve is as a platform. And Curve is a platform that's doing a couple $100 million of transactions per day, generating over $100,000 in revenue per day, and that $130,000 is distributed to people that have a VE curve position or a derivative of VE curve, which at this time is CVX CRV or YVE CRV. That's the deal. Yeah, what happened with Visor Giorgio? It's unfortunate, but they made whole. They paid everyone back, and you know, I'm not interested in many projects. In fact, I'm quite highly consolidated, and the vast majority of my capital is actually in Curve at this point. I got everything I have is long term and generates revenue on a daily basis. So let it go down, it'll go back up. Give it a couple of years, loses 90% or loses 90%. I don't have to do work, meaning I chose the assets like the beginning of last year when they were like 90% cheaper than what they are today. I have the same conviction I did last year that I do this year. So let them depreciate. Let these people play their buying and selling and degenerate games. And me, I sit back and I'm just letting them do what they do, capitalizing on their transaction fees, whether it's by Bancor or whether it's by my large position in Curve. And the other assets are just growing, growing, growing. Cosmos, Polkadot, so on and so forth. So those are inflationary derived yield that accounts for debasement. But the real yield that's meaningful is transaction fees. That's why Curve really, aside from XSushi, there's not many protocols that are distributing or decentralizing or for allowing people to gain access to daily transaction fee revenue. Um, Sorry, Bradley, I finally got my head around how Curve and Convex works, but it took me so much time researching. Yes, it does. It's not easy, my friend. Gillatron, what's a good Aave alternative at the moment? There is nothing like Aave. Compound comes close, but Aave is Aave for a reason. That's the money market for the crypto space. Xbeatnik, folks, don't want to learn DeFi and yield farming. It's early. Plus, you can learn as little as one day if you're diligent and savvy. Well, what matters is interest and effort, and it always can be learned. Heck, I was standing on one of those hoverboards yesterday, the day before yesterday, with my daughter. Can you imagine a 240-pound man standing on one of them hoverboards? I got pretty good at it. So you can learn anything. You really can. You just got to start slow, get the feel for it, see the responsiveness of the systems do this, the system does that. One step at a time, your skills improve, your connection between your feet and the hoverboard, your connection between your ledger device and a DeFi protocol, and you get more comfortable and you figure out what the hell all this means. Gillatron, we can do better. That's right. 104 people in the stream, 26 likes. We can do better. Killis is in the house. Always a pleasure. Adam, hey, no, and everyone. Hope you're well. Ability to plan 5 to 10 years into the future seems more and more like a superpower. Well, that's the time horizon that I have. I'm not dealing with this short term. I'm not playing these games. I'm going to sell now and buy back at a little bit lower. I have to account for transaction fees. I have to account for slippages. I have to keep an eye on the markets, not just the crypto space. I have to keep an eye on the global macro markets. Hell no. I got work to do. I got girls to take care of. I am effectively training myself to be able to prepare for the future financial system. And I'm not necessarily meaning the future crypto financial system. I'm meaning the future of all financial systems. What the hell is it going to be like in 4 or 5 years? And that's what I have exposure to. Crypto space gives me exposure to what things may be like in the next couple of years. Hell, if everything deflates and the system completely crashes, that's where gold comes into the picture, and silver as well. If the energy transformation keeps going, which we've seen for the last year or two, it's been picking up speed, then my lithium, cobalt, nickel, and graphite securities are going to pick up. And that's going to be nice. If there's an issue with everything and everything deflates into fiat, everything gets sold for fiat, which Brent Johnson talks about. We have a deflationary implosion in the short term until the central banks try and do a Bretton Woods and figure out what the heck they're going to do with the global financial system. So be it. That's what cash is for. So you need a bit of a position of everything. Now, clearly, even if you, no matter the size of a portfolio, you can do all this. Clearly, if the portfolio is larger, you're able to make more money in the crypto space or the securities markets easier. Money makes money. But what's most important really is the education and the experience at this point. Even if you had money, you're not going to know what to do with it unless you gain the experience and knowledge playing and interacting with these systems. So you have to start somewhere. And if it takes $50 worth of experimentation to fund that education, that's probably the best course of action. Education is everything. Experimentation is everything. But the last thing anyone should ever do is throw capital at assets and platforms they don't understand. And that's exactly what happened the beginning of this year with Shiba Inu and Safe Moon and Doge. Oh my goodness, what a tragedy. Folks throwing capital at those things, they have no idea that it's basically a hyperinflationary asset with absolutely no incentivized supply disruption nor deflationary pressures. It's a flawed monetary policy. Now, clearly, if the entire world adopted Dogecoin, it doesn't matter what the monetary policy is. It probably has a better monetary policy than the US dollar, at least over the last year. Doesn't mean it's a good monetary policy, but whatever. I wouldn't touch Doge with a 10-foot pole. Stay back, Doge. Stay back. Macro Mind, in it for the experience. Yes, and it's not just in it for the technology. That's short-sighted. Because this experience works. So different than 2018. I mean, damn. Come on, what's my daily? The daily's something like $3,500 a day off transaction fees. I mean, this was a lot higher, getting creamed. I don't like showing folks the numbers that I've been working with lately, but it's been a good year. It's up at like 1.4 for a while. It's like 3,500. It was seeing like 4 grand a day at one point. But the 110% APY is very nice. Very nice. I got a little bit in Try Crypto. I had some Ethereum. I figured I'd throw it in there. This thing's going to go up. Probably find peace of mind around 50, 60% as the projection starts to play out. It's been creeping up. Started around 4%, but it's been creeping up. The projection was at about 90% for a while. But look at these numbers. The yield comes from there. I'll show you guys this. Go over to the claim tab. You'll see two things. You'll see three things. So this is yield. This is cash. Comes from VE curve. And the curve comes from the incentivized emissions here. So this is where the CRV yield comes from. And then the CVX emissions basically come from here. So you go back over to the stake tab, and if you hover over any of these positions, you'll see this whole platform is designed to be a revenue share, where all the liquidity provided on Convex, a part of it, gets shared with CVX, CRV, as well as CVX stakers. So people are providing capital that's doing work, and we earn a piece of their work without providing any liquidity? That's crazy sauce. That's awesome. CVX CRV and CVX stakers are getting a piece of all liquidity provided on the entire platform to the tune of about 4.5 bill on YFI. But if you go over to CVX, you're talking about $3.35 billion. So CVX CRV is getting 110% work done because of $3.35 billion worth of liquidity that's provided. And this liquidity is churning. It's churning to the tune of $390 million a day. What happens when that's $3 billion a day? Well, fine. Maybe it goes down to $30 million a day in the short term, but in 5, 6, 7, 10 years, you don't think that's going to be $3 billion a day or $30 billion a day? So instead of 3,000 a day, it's 30,000 a day or 300,000 a day. So you see this number and you're like, all right, I'm not making that much. What if it's $300 a day? What if it's $30 a day? It's the same exact thing. If you needed this capital, you shouldn't be in the crypto space. It's just the honest thing. Forget about the capital. Understand the systems and experiment. That's a hard thing to do, to watch capital come and go, and people obviously getting in now are probably going to watch the capital depreciate, and that's a very painful thing to do. I don't have easy answers to how to overcome those emotional realities. I mean, if you bought Curve last year, it was 25 cents. What is it at now? Bought Curve last year was at 25 cents, and it's sitting at $1.62. If it crashes 50 cents, 50%, it's at 80 cents. That's still up 300% from the vast majority of my entry. Anyway, not easy, my friends, not easy. Let me go through the rest of the comments, probably wrap up the stream at a moderately reasonable time today. Would you elaborate on if you prefer CVX staking or CVX CRV staking for the same amount of US dollar investment? There'll be a price floor for CVX, particularly because it produces more CVX CRV emissions than CVX CRV produces CRV emissions. That's just the way it is numerically that I've seen. But CVX CRV is likely to be more volatile and depreciate more. So that's a choice. I'm not holding any CVX right about now. I'm just going to continue the growth of my CRV, locked as CVX CRV position. I feel that that's the most appropriate thing to do. At least that's the thing I'm most comfortable with. At the end of the day, we have to do what we're most comfortable with, and it lets us sleep at night. And if you're fearful for your capital, you sell. If your hopes and dreams are getting crushed, maybe you hold it. If you're buying in just now, I'd expect it to go down. I'd expect it to go down significantly. Expect depreciation and hope for appreciation. That's all you can do. Global financials are literally teetering around an edge. In a matter of a week, $750 billion in reverse repos. They're going to have to extend the swap lines. Brent Johnson and Raul with their dollar bull, they're just probably loving it right now because sure, they said this all along. It was almost inevitable all along. It's just a matter of time. You got to have strong hands to sit and watch capital depreciate so a time horizon can effectively execute. Secret. Hi, Noah. Discovered your channel recently and love it. You're helping make sense of this crazy space. Love to join Discord. Any plans to accept crypto? It's not up to me. It's up to LaunchPass. They let me know that they're probably looking into it, hopefully sooner rather than later. That'd be very nice. That'd be very nice. I have no capacity to accept it, but the software that is manages Discord said, or the developers of that software said that they may accept it sooner than later, and that'd be very nice. So the amount deposited and staked on Curve doesn't matter compared to the amount of Curve locked and CVX, CRV stake due to the transaction fees. So the dollar value of Curve is not what's most pertinent. Your percent ownership of Curve relative to the total supply of locked VE Curve, whether it's a derivative asset, CVX, CRV, or YVE, CRV, it doesn't matter. That's what's pertinent to how much of the daily transaction fee revenue you get. If you own 1% of locked VE Curve in a derivative form or whatever, you're going to get 1% of the daily transaction fees. And today, that's going to be a heck of a transaction fee lucrative day, $389 million times 0.02% times, let's say, 0.1% if you own 0.1% of all VE Curve. That's possible. I think I own a fair amount at this point. I know there's holders that have millions of Curve, and I'm not there. I definitely don't have millions, but it's nice to see. It's nice to see that people are locking. You see Yarn modifying their or adding and enhancing and rethinking their strategy, and and uh, Badger is also locking. And Convex is obviously the strongest locker at this point. It has more VE Curve locked than Yearn, even though there's more TVL on Yearn. So, you could call it the lockening. You could call it more supply, more emissions locked than more. You could call the protocol net deflationary, which is what I would like to say, that either we are net deflationary currently or we will inevitably be net deflationary, especially when there's an emissions reduction, which I think happens in August. Um, let's keep it going. Keep it going. Critical mass. FM by Matic. You can't wait if the money is self-destructive. Matic's a big deal. I think the India narrative is rock solid, boys and girls. We've got to look out over a couple-year time horizon, and that doesn't make it so easy. KG, are you staking any EPS? No, the EPS goes to cash because I got to pay some taxes in 2022. You don't get transaction fees for holding Curve. Yes, you get transaction fees for holding Curve and locking it into VE Curve. So if you go over here, not the pools, you go to the Dow. You go over to the Dow down here. This is where you lock your curve for VE Curve, or you could go to the locker as well. Or you could go up here and you'll see your curve here, and you could lock it in CVX CRV, which is a nice spot to lock it. Or you could go over to Yarn and you could lock it into YVE curve. YVE curve, yeah. Shiba Inu, Kenji. Woo! Stay back, Dodge. Stay back. Klaus. Woo! Happy life, all. Thank you. You're welcome. FM says, will Curve token have value in 3 years? I would argue that the value of the token is irrelevant. What's most pertinent is the amount of locked VE Curve ownership a person has and the yield that it gives you rights to, grants you rights to a daily revenue stream. David says, do you think Digibyte will become a worldwide store of value? No, absolutely not. It will not be a store of value, but I think it's a great currency. It will not be a new world reserve currency in any regards, but I think it's a powerful technology that has the capacity to perform as a functional currency. It has the capacity to provide data storage and asset management. Matthew's DigiAsset X is a big deal. That's basically NFTs on the Digibyte blockchain. That's extraordinary. That's big tech, but speculatively, that means everything. But there's no momentum. There's no monetary velocity. There's no capacity to collateralize the asset. So all the characteristics of a currency really are absent. It's disinflationary, which is meaningful, but there's no deflationary pressures on the asset that will support, if not drive up the price. And there's no capacity to access the equity in the asset, which means it's not a functional asset, and you can't really put it to work on a balance sheet to generate revenue. So it has too many things that make it non-functional from an investment standpoint, in my opinion. That is completely mutually exclusive from it being an extraordinary piece of technology. It's by far the superior UTXO. Makes Bitcoin look ancient and antiquated in many regards. The properties of DigiByte are far superior than Litecoin, but Litecoin and both Bitcoin have far superior hash rate, and that's very meaningful. Um, so, very complicated story. And technology and the price action of the asset are completely mutually exclusive. Archer, what is this? I don't know. I do not know. Oh, this. This is the breakdown of the gauge relative weight. Um, Gauges are voted on, gauge weight vote. So when you have VE curve, you're able to weight which particular gauge gets more interest. So as you can see here, the current yield on a particular pool position, you could vote for it to actually go up. So here, look, for 2.33 to 5.84 is going to go to 2.33 to 5.81. So this one's decreasing. But as people vote on their gauges, here, look, try crypto, 17% to 43 is going to go to 51% to 129. So people are voting for this try crypto to increase in the amount of curve it receives as an incentivized emission. There you go. Lowe's YK, what makes you confident enough to stake your funds in a platform with an anonymous team like Curve? Well, there's a certain amount of desperation that's involved in all value allocation processes. So I'm not there yet, but I believe that I feel comfort and confidence in the Curve platform. I feel that the Convex team is associated with the Curve platform. Speculatively, they may actually be either all, if not some, of the Curve development team. I and I know that there are very so this goes back to what I was saying about desperation. I'm not financially desperate. I have a means to make an income, but I am desperately seeking financial freedom. And when you're looking for financial freedom, what are we going to put our money in bonds? What are we going to put our money in gold? What are we going to buy? Apple and Tesla? Put $500 in Tesla and we're going to be financially free? So, my personal belief is that this is probably one of the most interesting assets and platforms and technologies that I could think of at the moment. A revenue share for transaction fees in the crypto space, stable coins, and equal priced assets. Yet Curve is also going to be launching their permissionless regular pools, which means anyone could create a pool, which is basically why Uniswap is so hot. And I can only imagine the liquidity flooding those regular pools just like it did Uniswap. And I can only imagine getting transaction fees from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pools. And that's where I get excited and that's where I get confident. And, if I was worried and I couldn't sleep at night, I wouldn't have my value allocated there. I'd have it in cash. But I'm not worried because I have other assets and other capital that's diversified and structured reasonably. Mix. I don't know if that was the best clarification, Lulz, but that's my sentiment. And I'm happy to talk on that again if it wasn't clear or if something was not meaningful. Or I'm happy to hit the topic again. Mix. Apples. Apple. No. David, Wise Token will release lending and borrowing soon. Okay, so I look for critical mass liquidity. When we see a couple of $1 billion worth of liquidity, that's cool. And then when we see DApps accepting it, and we see a couple $100 million a day in transactions, that's a big deal. Now you got basically the foundation for the emergence of monetary velocity, which is the critical metric of a financial system. What's up with RF pool on curve shows at 0 TVL? I don't know. What's RF? I don't know. I don't know what RF is. Let's take a peek real quick. I don't know. It's probably a pool that has no liquidity right now. That's okay. Um, I'm going to wrap this up, but let's hit the rest of the comments. David says, "What's your opinion on Phantom?" I like it. Phantom's very cool. Solana's very cool. Avalanche is very cool. Anything that potentially has critical mass liquidity followed by DApp development is likely going to achieve critical mass monetary velocity. I think that's a big deal. Um, Klaus, thank you very much. You have a great day. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank everyone that joins me. You guys give me a place to talk my ideas and tell my stories. I appreciate that. Lisa, hello. Hi, Noah. Greetings from Germany. A pleasure. Is it possible to use Polygon to set up revenue share on Curve, or do you have to pay L1 fees? L1 fees for basically the Convex platform, which is aside from Urine, that's the two derivative platforms that are facilitating basically VE curve plus plus, so to speak. AGJE, what is a reverse repo? How are they affecting cryptos? Well, the reverse repos are basically because banks have so much cash that they have no idea what to do with them. So they're able to lend that cash to the U.S. government for 0.05% interest. And the other day, it was a Thursday or Friday, they lent them $750 billion that had cash they had no idea what to do with. They didn't want to buy bonds, they didn't want to buy treasuries, they didn't want to buy anything. So they just gave it to the government, and the government gave them 0.05% interest. It's a ridiculous situation, and the system really is on the verge of some sort of systemic event, a liquidity crisis, as Stephen Van Meter talks about. Maybe a milkshake like Brent Johnson talks about. Maybe the mother of all crashes like Michael Burry talks about. But all I know is, I like the way Raoul thinks, and I got a multi-year time horizon, 3, 4, 5 years. And if I could generate $1,000 a day, $2,000, $3,000 a day for the next 3, 4, 5 years while we're in a bear market, that's an extraordinary proposition. Even if it goes down, it is what it is. What other opportunities do we have? Started out with a fraction of this capital. It could drop 90% and I'm still green. So in 5 years' time, people buying in now will be in the green also. Not easy to navigate these markets. It's not easy to watch capital depreciate. It's not easy to have a long time horizon. It's not easy to have conviction. But what we need to do is experiment and educate ourselves. And learn what these systems are, because they're very profound systems and they're very meaningful, and they have the potential to change a lot of people's lives. Let's wrap this up. Monday, June 21st at 12:15 p.m. 93 people in the stream, 41 likes. We can do better. As always, I thank everyone for joining. Discord is on fire. Lots of people, 24 hours a day, trying to figure out these markets all together. Everyone helps everyone. Tell everyone to subscribe. I will see you tomorrow. Y'all have a good day now. Peace.